Some buzzwords that signified nothing, but were impressive to individuals who stopped learning new things in 2007. Kane lifted her eyebrows across the table, silently pleading with me not to laugh. Then something happened. Derek sat back in his chair, wiped his lips with a napkin, and then dropped it, as if it were nothing. "Hey Mark," he remarked casually, as if he were asking to borrow the remote. "Listen, I need to talk to you about something. It's kind of serious." I knew exactly where it was headed. I'd heard that tone before, a blend of faux humility and unwarranted expectation. "I need 10 grand, he said. Just like that. $10,000. As if it were pocket change. He said that without looking at anyone. "It's just me." As if it were already decided. Kane froze in mid-bite. Mom gazed down into her mashed potatoes, as if they were a magic 8-ball that could provide her an escape. Dad's jaw moved only once, but he remained silent. That was his thing. Behave as if quiet made you wise. It does not. I put down my fork. Not because I was astonished, but because I wanted him to know I had finished devouring him. "No," I replied. One word, without hesitation. Derek blinked, as if it had never occurred to him that I would say no. "What?" He laughed, as if I were joking. "Dude, it's just 10 grand. "It's not just anything," I responded calmly. "And I'm not giving it to you." The silence was audible. It spread across the table like barbed wire. Kane moved over and placed her hand on my knee beneath the table, as if she knew what was about to happen. Derek sat forwards now. The smile was gone, his voice increased. "You owe me, man. You owe me." He smashed his fist hard on the table, causing Mom to flinch. "You think I forgot what I did for you in college?" I did not say anything. I did not move. But then the air changed. That's when everything in the room buckled under the weight of what he had just stated. Kane turned to face me, her hand squeezing my thigh tightly. My parents froze as if someone had pressed pause. You could practically hear the wheels churning within their skulls. Derek continued going. "You remember that night, huh? That party. I covered for you. I saved your ass. You'd be in prison if it weren't for me." And that's when I looked him directly in the eyes, and I shouted it calmly, like a church bell in winter. "Fine. Let's talk about what you really covered. Have you ever seen someone's soul try to re-enter their body?" That was Derek at that time. His mouth opened and closed, then opened again. He looked at Mom, Dad, and Kane. Unfortunately, it was too late. The words were out. Everyone had overheard him. Everyone witnessed the mask crack. Mom turned pale. Dad clenched his fists so tightly that his knuckles became white. Kane slowly released her grip on my hand. And me? I did not move an inch. Because really, I've been waiting for that moment for 20 years. Every birthday. Every holiday. Every time Derek referred to himself as the family's hero. I bit my tongue so hard I could taste blood. I carried that night like a ghost in my pocket, knowing it would eventually come out to breathe. So yes, Derek wanted to open the door. Fine. He kicked it down himself. Now we're all strolling through it, and I'm done pretending I don't remember what happened that night. "Everyone just heard what you said, Derek," I said, my voice firm as if I had practiced it 1,000 times. "So now I'm done protecting you." I was probably around 19 or 21 years old at the time. Hell, time blurs. I recall it was senior year. Yes, I was 22. The math probably doesn't add up, but I've never trusted my memory when it comes to that night. That night did not seem like a recollection. It seemed like a poor snapshot, overexposed in the wrong spots and missing what I needed to see. All I knew for certain was that the next morning, I awoke with a searing headache, blood on my knuckles, and a school security officer knocking on my dorm room door, as if he was delivering death. The celebration was meant to be a blowout. A classic end-of-semester disaster with cheap booze, louder music, and even louder regrets. I went to Delta Toe because someone told me they had jungle juice so potent that you forgot your own name. And maybe that's precisely what I wanted that night. To forget. My grades were okay. My life was uninteresting. My girlfriend had just dumped me by text message, and I was too cowardly to acknowledge I missed her. So I went, drank, danced, shouted, and passed out. It wasn't the first time, Nor would it be the last. But it was the only time I awoke with people staring at me, as if I'd done something wrong. Derek wasn't even meant to be present. He was still in high school at the time. A punk youngster with a phony ID and a wild streak as broad as the Mississippi. He romanticized college life like it was a goddamn movie, and he would sneak up to see me while pretending he had somewhere else to be. I occasionally let him crash on the floor. I didn't think much of it until that night, when I discovered that he had also crashed the party. He appeared while I was halfway through my third red Solo cup of whatever was in that barrel, and disappeared into the crowd as if he owned the area. The following morning, everything seemed strange. I couldn't recall what I had done, but everyone looked at me as if I had set the place on fire. I kept hearing whispers. "Mark? That guy? Are they serious?" Nobody would give me straight answers, just vague allegations and stares, followed by the university police, who indicated there had been a complaint. A girl. Her name was not on the documentation they handed me, but they did say there was an incident on the upstairs landing sometime after midnight. My name came up. Witnesses placed me there. My blood alcohol level was really high, and I had no memory of anything. That's when Derek stepped in. He drew me aside outside the administrative office, eyes wide and voice low, and said, "Don't say anything. Do not confess. I'll handle it." That aspect is very distinct in my memory. "I'll handle it," he offered, as if he were making a heroic gesture by stepping in to save me from my own mess. He said he'd talk to someone, perhaps the girl, or someone else. It was all hazy, and by the next day, everything had vanished. The complaint was withdrawn. No charges were filed. The school aggressively pushed me to take the semester off. My parents were furious, yet relieved. Nobody had too many inquiries. And Derek? He wore it like a badge. When I asked him about it later, he just laughed and said, "You owe me, dude." Big time. I figured he'd brushed things over somehow. Perhaps he had persuaded the girl it was not serious. Maybe I had done something and didn't want to know. That was the sick part. I did not want to know. I let the shame sink in. I let it sit, and I structured my existence around avoiding it. I told myself that I was lucky. I told myself he had saved me. I told myself several things. But after what he said at dinner, and after watching him weaponize that secret like a loaded gun pointing at my head, I began to reconsider. I began to question whose mess it actually was. I started digging. I looked back through some old folders my father had stored in the attic. He saved everything. Letters, notes, and even some of my old academic materials. A yellow envelope contained a letter from the school dated April 2003. It was not addressed to me. It was addressed to my father. In it, the dean mentioned a misunderstanding between both sons. Both sons. I read that section again. That did not make sense. I was the one who enrolled. Derek was not even on the official radar. So why would they mention both of us? I began emailing and calling. I went out to an old classmate who had attended the party. He didn't remember much either, but he did recall seeing Derek arguing with someone at the bottom of the steps. "I think he was trying to get some girl's attention," he told me, but she freaked out. She appeared to be attempting to flee. My hands were shaking as I typed the name into my laptop. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, a clue, a post, or anything. And there it was. The blog. A dusty little site with 3 articles and an image that took my breath away. That was her. I didn't know what her name was back then. I do now. Emily Cartwright. She recalls everything. It took 3 days for her to respond to the email I wrote. Emily Cartwright. The girl from that night. I hadn't seen her face in 2 decades, but she haunted the corners of my mind like a ghost I refused to name. When her message arrived, I opened it as if it would explode in my hands. I was half expecting rage, misunderstanding, or nothing at all. But instead she scribbled only one sentence. "If you really want to talk, I'm ready." We met at a coffee shop on the outskirts of town. The sort with chipped paint on the walls and lousy acoustic coverings that play just loud enough to make nothing feel private. She stepped in wearing a long gray coat and a scarf, despite the fact that the weather did not call for it. She recognized me right away, and I knew she had, despite the years. Her smile was tight as if saying, "I'm here, but don't mistake this for forgiveness." I thanked her for coming, but the words felt empty even as I spoke them. We sat across from each other, Two strangers bonded by one terrible night. I had no idea how to begin. She helped me out. "You don't recall anything, do you?" she inquired, stirring a cup of tea that contained neither sugar or milk, only heat. I shook my head slowly, feeling humiliated all over again. "Only fragments," I replied. "Noise. A stairway. My brother said he would fix it." She nodded and took a minute to look aside. She said again, but this time more quietly. "I wasn't even supposed to be there," she explained. "My roommate dragged me outside. She said we needed one night of fun before exams." She laughed lightly but bitterly. Hollow. "You were already out of it when I arrived. Drunk beyond reason, stumbling. I remember thinking someone should have cut you off hours ago." I remained mute. I had no resistance, even after so many years. "I went upstairs to use the bathroom," she began, her voice calm now, as if she had prepared these words in the mirror before arriving. "He followed me. Not you, him, Derek. He cornered me on the landing. He smelled like cannabis and booze. He tried to be charming, as if he knew me. I didn't even know his name. I said no. He did not like that. He tried to thrust himself on me. Hands on my waist. Mouth too close. My hands clenched beneath the table, nails cutting into my palms. I shoved him off." She continued, unflinching now. "He stumbled, hit the wall, cursed at me, called me a—" "I ran downstairs," he informed a pal. She informed campus security. "Then the next day, everything became crazy. They claimed it was you. They reported that several individuals spotted you up there, that you were intoxicated and violent, that you had become aggressive." She stared at me now, her eyes black and unyielding. "I didn't see your face clearly that night, but I remember your voice. And it was not yours. I tried to inform them, but someone, your father I believe, called me. He told you you were being sent home, that you were being helped. He stated that the person who had wounded me was no longer present, and he pledged that it would not happen again. He offered to pay for the therapy." For silence. And I was tired. I was afraid. So I let it go. I felt something heavy and icy descend into my chest. I had no idea this weight was mine. "He told you I was gone," I reiterated. She nodded. "He informed me you were going. And the other one, the genuine one, had been dealt with. So I did not press charges. I wanted to shout, to cry, to punch a wall. I would go back 20 years and drag Derek down those steps myself. But instead, I simply sat there and whispered, 'He lied to you.'" She did not answer immediately. She just looked at me like she'd seen the whole image, and didn't like any of it. After we parted ways, I drove silently. There's no music, no podcasts. Just the sound of tires on the pavement and 1,000 ideas racing through my head. Derek had utilized me as a body shield, with our father's cooperation. I stopped at a gas station on my way home, not to fill up, but because I needed air. I stood in the parking lot, hands on knees, thinking about how many times I had thanked Derek for saving me over the years. When I returned home, I retrieved an old lockbox from the attic. Inside were tax paperwork, birth certificates, and a slew of date-stamped envelopes. One stood out, April 2003. Inside, a duplicate of the check, written by my father to Derek for $8,000. Memo line labeled, "Spring Tuition." Only Derek was not enrolled in anything. He had never applied to college that year. That money wasn't for tuition. It was silent. I stared at it till the sun went down, when Kane discovered me on the floor and asked what was going on. I did not respond to her. Not yet. I glanced at that check as if it were a crime scene photo. "You lied to rescue yourself, Derek. I bore your guilt for 20 years. Now it is your time." The turkey was dry. The wine was very sugary. And the entire house felt as if it were holding its breath, waiting for the storm that no one saw coming. Thanksgiving in my parents' house was usually stiff, forced, and involved a lot of pretending. This year, however, the air felt heavy, as if the walls knew what was about to happen before the people inside them. I hadn't spoken to Derek since the dinner explosion 3 weeks ago, and the stillness between us had become deafening. He still showed up, of course. Walking in with the same swagger, smiling like a man with no shame to lose. He offered my mother a bottle of alcohol, which erased everything. I gave my dad a smack on the back as if they were still on the same team. He then sat across from me, smirking as if he still had the upper hand. He did not. I'd spent the last 3 weeks rummaging through memories that I'd tried for years to forget. I talked to people I hadn't spoken to since college. I looked into bank records and disciplinary reports. Anything that may back up what I already knew in my bones. But I did not come here to produce documents. I came here to tear him apart in front of everyone. In the only language he knew. Control. I knew Derek. I knew how to pull his strings quietly. And tonight I planned to play him like a piano. Dinner was awkward from the beginning. My mother attempted to appear normal, handing the dishes as if she wasn't dying within. My father barely spoke, simply carving the turkey as if it were a problem he could solve with a sharp knife. Kane sat next me, quiet but awake, her fork pushing food around rather than eating it. Derek broke the silence with small chat and jokes that fell flat. Pretending nothing had occurred. Pretending he hadn't broken the family's fragile calm with a single statement and a smirk. He thought if he just pretended everything was all right, it would be. That was always his trick. Rewrite the story loudly enough, so that people forgot what actually happened. I waited for dessert. That's when everyone's guard lowers. That's when they realize they might have gotten through another holiday without spilling blood on the tablecloth. My mother was getting out the pumpkin pie when I cleared my throat and said, "Derek, do you remember that night in college when you covered for me?" The room froze. Forks lingered. My mom's fingers trembled slightly, causing the pie to shift on the platter. Derek looked up from his coffee with those big innocent eyes he'd honed since boyhood. "Man, are we seriously bringing that up again?" He stated with a giggle that didn't quite register. "Water under the bridge, right?" "Yeah," I answered casually, as if I were only reminiscing. But I thought about it. I'm trying to remember the details. Isn't it funny how it all went down? He narrowed his eyes slightly, sensing the trap but not seeing it yet. "You were blackout drunk," he remarked, leaning back as if he were lecturing me on my life. "You can't remember anything. That is why I stepped in." "That's the thing," I murmured, leaning forward and keeping my voice even. "I didn't remember anything. Until recently." His jaw tightened slightly, enough for me to notice. I continued going, slow and steady. "I talked to Emily, Derek." His coffee cup froze in midair. Clinked back on the saucer. "I discovered her blog. I've reached out." She replied. It turns out she recalls everything. The staircase. The jacket. The voice that was not mine. My father looked up. Really looked up. My mother was staring at her lap, as if she didn't move she'd disappear. Derek's voice lowered. "You don't know what you're talking about." "Oh, but I do," I replied. "I know you arrived at that gathering uninvited. I understand you followed her upstairs. I know Dad paid you off later. They called it tuition. Want to view the check?" Derek's face turned red. He opened his mouth, closed it, and then opened it again, the words fumbling like loose coin in his pocket. "You were drunk," he retorted. "No one would have believed you over me." So there it was. The crack, the slip, the confession. My mother gasped. Barely audible. My father rose up, face pallid from something I'd never seen before. Not wrath, but something approaching disdain. Kane simply stared at Derek as if he were a stranger who had walked into our house and pissed on the rug. "You bastard," Dad said, his voice quivering. "We protected the wrong son." Derek attempted to backpedal. "Of course you knew what could have happened to him," he remarked with wide eyes. "I did not hurt her. Nothing occurred." "But you tried," I replied. "And you let me carry it for you." My mother began crying, her hands shaking so hard that the pie tumbled to the floor. Nobody moved to clean it up. Derek gazed about like a man looking for a non-existent escape route. And me? I sat there, as calm as a priest at a funeral, watching the structure of falsehoods he'd created collapse around him. He stood, knocking his chair back. "Do you think you're better than me?" he shouted, but his voice broke halfway through. "No," I replied, standing and directing my stare at his. I just finally stopped pretending I'm worse. After then, there was a thick, strangling silence, similar to the time before a storm, when the pressure changes and everything feels out of place. Derek stormed away without saying another word. My father followed, not to stop him, but to ensure his departure. My mother simply wept. Kane said nothing till we were heading home. And even then, she just asked one question. Are you feeling better now? I did not respond right away. I observed the vacant road, the headlights slashing through the darkness like a knife through remorse. I don't know, I finally said. I think I just feel finished. But I was not. Not really. Because revenge is satisfying for about 5 minutes. Then it simply feels like ash in your mouth. Derek, you damaged your own life. I've just given you the match. The days following Thanksgiving felt like winter arrived early. Not in the weather, but in how everything suddenly became frozen between people who had previously shared warmth. Derek did not send any text messages. No calls. Not even one of his cheap apology attempts, which he used to throw around like confetti when his back was against the wall. He seemed to vanish without a trace. As if by telling the truth out loud, I had entirely exorcised him from the family. And perhaps I had. However, the absence did not feel like victory. It seemed like a vacuum. Silence with sharp edges that could slash skin. My father did not speak to me for 5 days following that supper. Then a letter arrived. Very old school. Postmarked from 2 towns away, where he had holed up in someone's cabin.